Hi, Kathy. Welcome back for our second session in our series on breathing. As we talked about last time, breathing is a skill that we can develop. And I have just enough knowledge to be dangerous in this field. But I think some of what I learned perhaps makes it seem more complicated than it really has to be. I remember when I was first taught a disciplined sort of conscious breathing pattern that it was, it was supposed to be really important to breathe in through your nose and then exhale from your mouth, and you do a count of 10, and then you hold for a certain period and another count, and it actually makes it more difficult, I think, to do in practice, because you get so caught up, and then you lose your count, and then you feel like you're doing everything wrong, and then you start to stress about it, and then you're breathing wrong. And so I'm hoping that you can show us a very simple method that gets us most of the benefits and allows us to develop our own practice. And then I'm guessing if we want to experiment with some of the other breathing patterns that people recommend, we can get into that. But let's start very simply. What's the breathing cycle that is optimum for our objective to reduce our stress levels and to kind of nullify that fight or flight mechanism?
To make it very simple, the simplest of all is to understand that all the chemistry is changing based on what the story is being told to the body. Simple. There are lots of ways to do fancy things and do all kinds of breaths in, breaths out and all that. And that's a discipline that is okay, because it actually teaches you to be thinking of one thing. So you have one thought. So the confusion gets like, oh, I missed it, and that gets frustrating. But so it's not necessary to be that specific.
Okay.
So the breathing that is the simplest and does the most good in almost every one of the studies at the end is to just slowly be able to breathe into your nose, in through your nose, so that the pineal gland and the hormones that are related in the brain can get a bath. Make it simple. From those hormones that can help you calm down, then you breathe it down into your lungs, and just imagine it going down to the very base of your lungs and expanding out that diaphragm so that everything understands that there's no danger right now and it's calm.
Okay.
And the way to do that is to expand the abdomen to do so. And then when you breathe it back out, observe what you're doing and seeing it come back out forward. The simplest, there's just a couple that I use that are the most studied, actually most studied, at least in my work. One is just the diaphragm breathing, but what I use most often is what's called the 4-part breath.
Okay.
So the 4-part breath is to just concentrate in quarters. I look at it as a box in my mind, but people can do it different ways. But I just watch the breath in the count of 4. And that actually means that you count to 4. It's simple. And then you concentrate just on that. It's not complicated.
So the 4 parts are, let's say we start with inhale.
Inhale to
and then
the count
we
of 4.
hold it.
And we hold that expansion to
4.
the count of 4.
Okay.
We exhale and control our breath a little bit to the count of 4.
So we're kind of metering it.
Yep.
And now that exhalation is
to the count of 4.
But it's ideally not through our mouth, right?
It's always through the nose.
Yes, so and because that gets us back to that whole conversation about the pineal gland.
Exactly.
Which, as I understand it, is located somewhere in your sinuses.
Up above, your sinuses. Right. In that.
So it's almost like your breathing massages your pineal gland.
Yes.
And that releases hormones that actually induce our body to relax.
To regulate our system and know that we're not in fear and that we have a moment of a break, yes.
Yeah, so it's like directly countering that whole stress, anxiety, fight or flight combination.
And that's why the breath through the mouth and an exhale is not quite as useful. Let's use all our tools while we're on the game.
Yeah.
So you inhale to the count of 4, you hold to the count of 4, you exhale to the count of 4. And when you feel like you can hold your breath out for the count of 4, you just wait. And if you can't, then you just start your breath again to the 4. Always in through the nose and always out through the nose.
So I have been told when I was learning to breathe more consciously, one of the things I struggled with is you're trying to take a big breath, and so it for me the natural approach was to
Yep.
And I got a pretty clear message that is not the right way to do this. So
it's fascinating. That's probably the fascinating thing. When you have your shoulders up, you're just ready to go.
Yeah.
This is a fight or flight mechanism. So to not understand that and to teach people to just take a breath, whatever, just breathe. And everybody freaks out about it, and they're actually for real because their body's ready to fight all the time.
Yeah.
So there's a process where you have to let your shoulders be soft.
Okay.
So you just stop and you drop your shoulders and let the belly go this way, out this way, more and less of the shoulders. In doing that, you're allowing your body to understand calm. Because if you're getting ready to run from the saber-tooth tiger or whatever that is, you're going to need all those muscles to help you do it.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's not what our goal
Anytime
is.
I'm running from a saber-tooth tiger, I want all that I can get.
And that's not what
we're
doing. That's right.
Yeah.
And so in this case, what we're trying to do is elicit the calm hormones and the calm gut and the calm brain. And the way to do that is to tell the body and the vagal nerve to calm that by way of the phrenic nerve and calm everybody else down. If the vagal nerve is, my imagination, it's not exactly this way, but in my imagination, the vagal nerve is being pinched around with your shoulders. It's not going to be calm.
Right.
Can't be.
Right. Now, then I would guess that if somebody feels like they're struggling to keep their shoulders soft in the breathing process, maybe practice in front of a mirror just to be able to, just to know that you're doing it, because once you're able to recognize that behavior, you can probably counter it pretty quickly.
There's a common childhood behavior that is trained, that is sucking your gut, and it's absolutely the most opposite to what you should do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have never really figured out what to do with their stomach. They only know how to breathe through the high lungs. They only know that.
And when
it takes some work.
When you watch a baby breathing,
it's very soft.
It's all in their belly. Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm seeing patients or clients, I will have enough difficulty, or they'll have it inside. They're working too hard.
Yes.
So I will actually lay them out and lay down and have them put a hand on their belly and hand on their chest, and leave their hand that's on the chest alone, and make that belly rise and fall with their hand. They can usually do it laying down, and then we go to sitting, because then they understand. They understand the muscles are different.
Right.
So it's not hard. It's about actually more relaxing than we're used to.
Okay.
And the control is in actually the process of relaxing. So looking in a mirror matters. And if you have somebody else that can watch your shoulders, I've had classes where I just had everybody touch each shoulders, and every time you take a breath, so if you try a breath, and if you're getting a little high, we're going to know it. But if you open up your belly, you won't be moving as much high up. Yep, it's easier.
Interesting.
It doesn't take long.
Well, let's practice. If I suggest that we run through the 4-part cycle, and just kind of do a couple practice runs, and then maybe get the 5 breaths in. See if it changes.
See if we do. That's a good idea. I usually say that with the eyes closed, we're able to concentrate more, and it's actually a concentration of thought. So it's a good thing. It focuses. You don't have to, though. You can keep your eyes open if you wish. So I'll keep my eyes open as I watch.
All right.
And then we'll do that. So we'll just get our bodies nice and steady. Sit tall if you can. Feet flat on the floor is usually best, so that there's very little distraction what's happening there.
Interesting.
And when you start, you just go ahead and just take a really deep breath in through your nose first, keeping your shoulders down and your belly out. Wait, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, you're already full. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and then hold out for just the 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, deeply, more belly. 2, 3. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Last one, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Deep breath in and let go.
Very nice. I do feel different. I've read a little bit about different patterns of breathing. I know that sometimes some people advocate for a longer exhale to try to get more of your, to empty your lungs more, and different lengths of time for the whole pattern. So I suspect that that's kind of an individual choice, and if people were to learn a very basic pattern like the simple one that you just taught us, which, believe me, I appreciate, because keeping it simple makes it much more accessible for me. And I think it's true for a lot of people in grief. We don't need to be stressing over, did I hold that long enough or not? So, I suspect that once we get a basic pattern down, we could experiment with other approaches.
There are a lot of approaches, and when I did my studies on breath, I noticed there were many different ways. There's like a short breath or a fast breath, and there's all kinds of sequencing, and there's lots going on.
Yeah.
In the end, the outcome that I found is that there were 2 breaths that made a real difference within a setting that I'm in. I'm in family practice, so I've got a short time to teach them. And I think everybody has a short time that they have a window that they can handle it in some cases. So,
right.
So although you can do a lot of things, there's a lot of work that can be done, and there's none that are wrong. But I think the best and the most healing of them ends up being what we just did as a diaphragm breath.
Okay.
And the most important part about it is breathing in through the nose, out through the nose, and holding. So if it's 4 or it's 8 or it's 16, it's about dropping that diaphragm down and stretching everything out and waiting. It's in the waiting and the hold, and then the exhale out through the nose that seems to have more outcomes. And my work was based on health outcomes. So blood pressure changed, the cholesterol changed, the reflux in the gut changed, seizures changed. All these things were improved and more. Blood count and all kinds of immune things were built on basically the diaphragm breath.
It's so fascinating.
It's huge.
Yes, and I mean, I guess it's not surprising. I mean, breathing is sort of a systemic function. It's not surprising that it affects all aspects of how our bodies function. I know I've heard you talk about another breathing technique. Is it I think it's the breath of fire, which sounds a little frightening, frankly.
Well, so that was the second one that was in my studies. That was the other one that did power. Sometimes it's just so hard to sit still. It's just too much to stop.
Right.
And there's another breath that works very well in removing some of the angst in there. And it's called breath of fire because it's actually empowering. It's giving you fire,
Mm-hmm.
in that terminology. And the way that it works, it usually with the shoulders are rolled and the hands are up high.
Okay.
And you can do it this way, or you can hold them together. It doesn't matter too much, but the hand position has to do with just the strengthening of the muscles in that way.
Okay.
But the breath itself,
It also opens your chest
it
up.
opens it up, and it lets the vagal nerve have an extra stretch, which I think is interesting,
Yeah.
in its help. But what the rest of the story is that it's actually an active exhale through the nose and a passive inhale through the nose. It sounds backwards, and it's very fast. So when I train on that, it's actually it sounds like this. It goes, and you're sucking in your gut just a little bit. You're giving yourself a little bit of a CPR by pushing your diaphragm in when you do it. And you can do that for a minute. Some people would do it for 30 minutes. When I was doing all that yoga work that I was doing, I was up to 62 minutes is the most I could do.
Really?
But it takes a lot of work to get to that place, and it's not necessary.
Yeah.
So when I've been into a lot of stress and I just need to start to think again, my concentration is off. That's one of the things that I'll go back in a back room and I'll just do that breath of fire. The way that it works is that what you're hearing when you hear me do it is you're hearing me exhale, and then your body then brings in the next breath passively.
Yeah.
So so one of the ways I start to train it is to keep your mouth open like a panting dog.
Okay.
If you don't mind. So it's like, and you feel your diaphragm doing something different. And if you suck you push that diaphragm, you go. So I'm hearing it. You hear it exhale, right?
Yeah.
Then you just close your mouth and keep going.
And so you're really powering all this with your stomach, not your chest.
Right. And you're using those muscles in the diaphragm. It can take the most cranky personality into a nice calm place for a minute.
Interesting. I noticed that I get distracted as I'm doing it. I can see where this is one that maybe more practice would be beneficial. And so when we look at these two very simple breathing techniques, I can see that the diaphragm breathing might be a wonderful way to start and end your day. And the breath of fire may be a really good thing to use during the day if we find ourselves overwhelmed.
Yes, it's sort of like your self timeout.
Yeah. Like and you can do it for a minute or 5 minutes or maybe even 62 minutes.
Yeah. That was in practice, but I don't necessarily think that's necessary.
I can't imagine actually what that must be like. But let's talk specifically, because so much of what led us to this is really a discussion about it, the common struggle that people in grief have with getting decent sleep. And so if we were to use, let's say, the diaphragm breathing as a lead-in to our sleep, how would we go about that? What we're doing here seems to work really well if we're sitting tall and feet on the floor and hands in it. So it's not something you should do laying in bed, it seems like.
Not true, in a way.
Okay.
The breath of fire isn't great at night.
Right.
That's just a given. But
it seems like it energizes, right?
It's like an energy focus.
Right.
So
right.
Might
be exactly what you don't need at that point.
And four-part breath about using too many thoughts to try to coordinate is also not as useful for the nighttime.
Okay.
I was trained one time by many times, but one of the Sikhs that was one of my teachers gave me this little glass brick, and said, "I want you to try seeing what this does." And I went, "All right, fine." And so the point was, I put this little glass brick on my abdomen. He goes, "I want you just to breathe it up and down." and then tell me what happens. And I was like, so this is my story.
And so this is laying down.
Laying down.
Okay.
So I lay down and I put the brick on, and all I did was concentrate on that brick. That's all I did. And I watched the brick go up and down. At 3 a.m, I woke up and I thought I had abdominal pain. It hurt me. I didn't understand. It was the brick. I went out for like 4 hours without even knowing that I had gone to sleep with a darn brick in front of me. And it was fascinating to me. And I went, okay, I get that. So now I'll teach patients. I'll say, sometimes you lay down, you put your hands on your belly and watch your hands rise and fall. And you raise it, fall, and you hold it out. So the brick was a little heavy, or a book or something was a little bit heavy, and I had to ask it to stay put out and then back in.
Right.
And it doesn't matter time. It doesn't matter how many breaths or spots or thoughts. You just open it up and you open that belly and you wait, and then you exhale it back down. Because through the brain, then you've got then the calming, right in that same pineal gland that we're trying to elicit is the melatonin. And melatonin is opened up. Nice, dark, cool room, no electronics around you. Put a book or your hands on your belly and let that melatonin kick in. It's wonderful.
Sounds awesome. I know many people take melatonin supplements to try to achieve the same sort of thing, but it's interesting that we could produce that naturally as long as, if we sort of create the right circumstance.
And it doesn't work if you have the TV on, and it doesn't work if you have electronics in your ears. I turn my phone way over there. Yeah. I don't have that. And a dark room is important. Cooler is better. But the idea is to leave leave your body in a calm place so that the pineal gland can come into play.
Yeah, very interesting. Seems like it all comes back to the pineal gland, doesn't
and
it?
the breath.
And the breath. So just to sort of recap, we've got a very simple breathing technique that people can practice just to kind of establish that skill set in this 4-part breathing, 4 counts of 4, breathing in that square pattern, if you will. And that could be used throughout the day, might be a great way to wake up. Or if we have a mid-afternoon break, if we decide to step away from all of our stressors, that might be a great way.
And it's great for training to trust your body that way.
Yeah.
Especially the little part about holding your breath out. That's interesting.
It is.
It's a trust.
Yeah.
It's a self-trust. It's a lovely thing.
I noticed that there's even though it's only a count of 4,
your body's a little anxious.
There's a little bit of panic. Yeah.
Just a minute.
Are you going to let me breathe again? Yeah.
Do I get another one?
Right. So trust. That's an interesting way to frame
self-trust.
Yeah, self-trust. And then we have the breath of fire, which is kind of like, sort of our emergency outlet.
The warrior.
When we find that things are piling up too much and maybe we're just a little bit less patient with the world around us, or we're starting to react in ways we're not comfortable with, that might be a good way to break that pattern. And I love the idea that just to prepare for sleep, we don't really need to do anything very elaborate. Either just put our hands or a book or something on our abdomen and just watch it. I found...
And hold.
Right. So we don't necessarily need to do the counts to 4, although we could. But it's important on the inhale to hold it up, because that's kind of the most work part of the cycle, and just keep it simple and just keep going through that pattern. I've noticed when I do find the things that help me when I'm struggling to sleep, the things that take my mind off of it and help me to relax, one of the ways I notice is I'll find myself starting to drift off and then fighting back to get back to whatever it was I was doing to relax, and then I realize, wait, this was the whole point. This was the whole objective.
Dang it, I was there.
Yeah, I was there. And then you can stress about that if you want to. No, so I think this is a beautiful practice.
Yeah.
Just for a reference point, back to the sleep issue. How long should somebody plan to do that? Is it a minute or two? Is it 5 minutes, or is it until you learned, until you slip away into sleep and wake up 5 hours later.
Wondering what, that's, and all of that is fair.
Yeah.
When all the training was done with me years ago, there was specific numbers, like 11 minutes or 11 times. They're just special numbers for that were used in my training. I think you can turn a timer on it if you want to.
Yeah.
You can do 3 minutes. I mean, I think that the point is the discipline of it. It doesn't matter what you choose, but don't miss a day.
Right.
That's all. The
Very
only discipline is don't miss a day.
Yeah.
And just stop and just do it randomly. So you just say, well, hey, wait, I forgot. I haven't done this in the last 4 hours. Let me just get my homework assignment over and just do it. Discipline the brain that way.
Make it a habit.
Only that.
Yeah.
That's how it makes it. It takes about 90 days to make a habit.
Right.
So you promise yourself every day for 90 days, you're going to do it 5 times during the day. Click, 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 click. I did my time. I'm done. Move on.
Yeah. And then eventually it just becomes the way you breathe.
It just becomes a way you can come in and out of that. I remember that the breath of fire was really useful when I worked in urgent care, because it was like go, 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 go for hours. And
right.
I was like, no, wait, I need to reset. And I would just pop into an empty room and just do it.
Probably beats the heck out of a cup of coffee.
It's so much better than a cup of coffee. So much better than a cup of coffee.
Well, thank you so much. I think we have a practice then that is pretty accessible to everybody. We keep it simple. Mm-hmm. And of course, as we progress through this 90 days to develop the habit, to sort of ingrain it in ourselves and make it much more natural, we have the option to explore other more complex breathing patterns and see if they do anything for us. It's all about breathing well. So as long as we keep massaging our pineal glands,
that's right.
Breathe in and out through the nose.
And drop the diaphragm.
It's all good. We can keep it simple and get a lot of the benefits.
And you can get into the whole meditative place with that, because now when you do that work, you have a stopgap here and you have a stopgap there, and those are your places of meditation. You don't have to work at it. It's a concentration of thought, not an absence of thought. And then you have the absence of thought.
That's, I've always struggled. That's been my big challenge in meditating, is to shut my brain off. And so it sounds like this would dovetail pretty nicely with that practice.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you very
much. We'll get together again and continue our conversation. We'll talk about some other aspects and benefits of breathing properly.
I look forward to more.
Me too.